Welcome. I wanted to take advantage of this time to go over some of the major theories in sociology. The first of which is called symbolic interaction. And it is a micro-sociological theory that focuses on how groups and individuals negotiate meaning. Well, what does that mean? Well, to negotiate meaning is to come to a common agreement about what gestures mean and what words mean and so forth. So this is not, in a sense, something that people do consciously, but they've been socialized into what these meanings are. You can see that different gestures mean different things in different cultures. And that's an important aspect of trying to gather this. And even in this class with the vocabulary terms, there's a lot of terms in sociology and even in research methods, just general scientific method, that are unique to this particular setting, if you will. And then we come to an agreement that this is what we mean when we say this term and so forth. The other thing that this theory does, it does kind of shy away from macro sociological explanations, focuses more on individual events and so forth. But to give you an example of what symbolic interaction really does, it's important to talk about these other things here. The looking glass self, for instance. The looking glass self, which is connected to Charles Cooley, really argues that we see ourselves as we imagine that others see us. So let me repeat that. We see ourselves as we imagine that others see us. So we don't see ourselves exactly as we are. We don't see ourselves as others see us exactly because we don't actually know. What we do know is that we reflect and we think about how other people would see us. And so we try to present ourselves in a particular way to make a good impression on others because we value social opinion. And this goes hand in hand with Mead's point here that reality is created through interaction. So it is this interaction that we generate that creates a social reality, and then that, of course, impacts back on us. So we're introspective creatures, Mead says. We, as human beings, think back about our interactions with our parents, our family, our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, and we want to see what their intentions are and so forth. We really examine this kind of thing. And then we compare ourselves. Our self-identity, according to Mead, is really how we fare when we compare ourselves to what he called the generalized other, which is some abstract standard, which one could argue is the product of social and cultural norms that have been formed culturally. So this overall general framework has many different theories. Label theory and differential association are both theories that are associated with the sociology of deviance. And label theory, for instance, argues that if we apply a stigma or a negative label to an individual, this person will begin to see themselves in this way, and others will also see this person in this way, and then that stigma then closes off avenues for this person to see themselves in other more positive ways, leading to very harmful self-identities, sort of a master identity of a person as a thug or a criminal or some negative identity that then negatively impacts the person's psyche and opportunities. You can see the impact of label theory when you think about somebody who's been convicted trying to find work with a criminal record, and people immediately label them in some way and then shut them off from this opportunity. And then the person may reflect upon that and say, I guess I am, this kind of person, because otherwise else would everybody treat me this way? And so you can see how they're socially defined, and this kind of thing interacts and feeds back upon itself. Differential association is another theory that's associated with symbolic interaction. It says that in order for people to learn criminal behavior, they have to be around it a lot and be around people who know how to do this. So that has the implication of really a critical look at our incarceration system, where we incarcerate more than any other country in the whole world. And says, well, you're going to send people to places where they're going to be around other people who do, lots of crime and have experience and so forth. And that's how you're going to learn. You can't learn it if you're not with those people who know how to do it. And so, and that's the general idea behind differential association. Another sociological theory is called structural functionalism, and that's a macro sociological theory that focuses on what is it that holds society together. Its major focus is on the maintenance of norms and values. How is it that societies tend to coalesce? Its origins are in Emile Durkheim. And Emile Durkheim had two concepts. One was mechanical solidarity and the other is organic solidarity that are very fundamental to this. And mechanical solidarity was the idea that society was held together by a common set of values that people arrived at by working together, living together, and doing the same things. Organic solidarity, thus associated with more developed or industrialized societies with higher divisions of labor, or much more subdivided divisions of labor, was going to hold society together in this case because the interdependence of individuals in different areas of the economy was still very strong. So if, for instance, if we don't support the truckers, how are we going to have food in our grocery stores? If you don't support farmers and farm workers, where will that come from? What about the people who work in steel? Well, we need that too. What about those who work in urban planning and so forth? And when something's missing, then we start to notice that, something doesn't work quite right. And so that's the idea of organic solidarity. They tend to approach things, any issue in structural functionalism is thus approached with the following question: what purpose does this phenomenon serve in society? So it must serve some function. And that's usually how structural functionalists approach different questions. So, for instance, most of us may think that crime serves no function. It's terrible. We need to eliminate crime. But structural functionalists would argue that, well, actually, crime helps society define what its moral boundaries really are. And if it weren't for that, you would have no contrast. And without contrast, you can't see it. It's like having a blank page, or it would be as if I had all these words that are written on this screen in white ink, and you wouldn't be able to see any contrast. So crime allows us to see the contrast between our norms and this violation, and thus we identify a social identity of who we are because of crime. Inequality serves some purpose because it allows people to get what needs to be done. Conflict serves purpose because it lets society know that something needs to be changed or adapted. So those are all structural functionalist ideas. And it gives you an idea how it looks at. And keep in mind these concepts by Durkheim. There's these associated theories: strain theory, the Davis and Moore thesis. The Davis and Moore thesis has to do with inequality, and it really, again, it argues that differential rewards leads people to do the jobs that need to be done. There are some problems with it, but it really is beyond the scope of our discussion here to go deep into this Davis and Moore thesis and theories of inequality. I discuss a lot of this in social problems and intro to sociology and so forth. And strain theory is a theory on crime. Again, this is one that I discuss a lot in the other classes. Feel free to look into these other theories on your own time here if time allows.